I love the idea of like centering this around somebody who is not a pro and is maybe getting through this for the first time. And like what was really cool is like hearing him say that like he knows a lot of people, a lot of directors that have gotten the opportunity to play sort of in other people's toy boxes, and he got like no notes. He got no pushback. Capcom, Sony, everybody was basically just like, yeah, man, cook. Do your thing. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about how infrequent and rare that is to happen, because it's everybody else who's like, I want to make an IP movie. Like they're going to come in and say like, you got to do this, 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 and this, right?
Yep. You can't change this about a character.
That's great, but also looking at the history of Resident Evil adaptations, it's also not that surprising. Like
I know. Well, yeah, it makes me go like, well, they should have gone to some of those and been like, hey, hold on, we have a couple of notes.
I love how like Paul W.S. Anderson was like, all right, that's 11 Resident Evil movies in the bag. I think I'm going to hang up the old Resident Evil hat and set my sights on Monster Hunter. And Capcom is like, all right, what do you got in mind? He's like, check it out. My wife is a Navy SEAL, and she goes to Monster Hunter and hunts the monster. And they're like, whatever, man. Here's a ticket to Prague. Go film her in a corset or whatever.
We used to have a thing, Max and Jada, you've probably heard us talk about this before. It's called the cone of disappointment. And it's shaped like an ice cream cone. And it starts off this big at the top. And they're making a live action Monster Hunter movie. I'm like, oh my God, they are? That's so cool. I love Monster Hunter. It's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. Oh, all right. Okay. Cone got a little smaller. Mia Jovovich is a Navy SEAL. And you're like, oh, come on, man. And by the time you're at the bottom, it's just like, it's going to be in theaters for 2 days, and like, nobody can, like, you're just like, all right, whatever. I'll watch it on an airplane after 3 vodka sodas. Nobody cares.
And I mean, we talk all the shit about him, but like Paul W.S. Anderson, to take it full circle, he gave us one of the best video game movies of all time. He gave us the original Mortal Kombat, which was his second feature film. And I don't know, that he did some great stuff there. It worked. And it also...
And he didn't take on the second one because he went to go direct Event Horizon.
Which gave us Dead Space.
I mean, it's like there are really interesting pathways in that timeline, right? And like what's fascinating about that is that, Mortal Kombat kind of went away for a little while, and like the games kind of dipped at the same exact time. And so I don't know, it feels good. A lot of this stuff is back. And at the very least, like if there's this much scrutiny and this much attention on video game adaptations, I think there's more pressure for people to get them right, and not necessarily right in that they are literal one-to-one adaptations, but that they are standalone, awesome pieces of media on their own. And the last thing I'll say about this is that video games as a medium are fascinating because we sit down to play them for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours, right? They're making an Elden Ring movie. I've played that game for 165, 200 hours maybe, right? There's no way you can take that entire experience I had and put it in a 2-hour movie. They're making an Odyssey movie. It's like, I just reread that book. It was one of my favorite books growing up. That's a story that spans decades. Like it is really hard to take these like long books, long games and all that, and take all of the most important parts of them and scale them down into something that everyone will enjoy, because we're all going to come into it with a different perspective. And the least you can do is just hope to basically grab the core of what makes that experience good. And I think that Alex Garland understands video games, and I think he understands, I want to make something that feels like the first time I played Elden Ring. And Zach Cregger understands that, and I think he said, I want to make something that feels like when I sit down to play Resident Evil for the first time. And that's a really tough thing to do. And I think that like we have to approach these mediums in that way. TV is a little different because you got a lot more wiggle room there, right? You can make a 10-hour first season and you tell the story for 20, 30 hours over the course of several years. But, even then, like there's like 3-4 years between seasons now. So I don't even know if that's the best place to tell these stories.
The thing that's exciting right now is that video games are an established enough medium that we have filmmakers, really good filmmakers, who are not being handed the rights to an IP. They are actually actively seeking it out. Like the fact that Alex Garland was like, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going to go talk to Miyazaki, I'm going to show him my pitch deck that's the giant tome for Elden Ring, and explain why I want to make this movie. And oh, by the way, I've played it 7 times. And it's like, he's not doing, like, he can do whatever, he can do other stuff. He can do plenty of other movies. He can do whatever the hell he wants without having to deal with, Bandai Namco studio notes or whatever. Like, he doesn't have to do this.
No,
he's an established enough director to do his own thing. The fact that he's actively seeking it out is exciting. That's interesting.
We are long past the days of, like, you know, Dennis Hopper and Bob Hoskins getting day drunk on set because the husband and wife directors saw Blade Runner and saw the back of the box of Super Mario and said, let's make a live action Mario movie. We'll just figure out the script day of, I guess. And these guys were just like, what the openly, like, open disdain for the project that they were working on. And in lieu of all that, like, I think there's some, I just reviewed this movie for IGN. I think there's some interesting stuff in this movie. Like, it's ambitious as hell, which is, you know, I always, Max and I have talked a lot about, like, revisiting not great movies, but, like, appreciating them for the individual parts of the construction, right? Like, you can be like, this has cool costumes or sets or whatever. But this was people that, like, very clearly did not know the source material, did not care for the source material. And there was almost an opus. I feel like when that happens, there's this cynical, almost like disdain for the audience, right? Where they're just like, they'll just watch any old crap. Who gives a shit? And I hate that. I hate that approach to filmmaking.
I think to both of your guys' points, we're at this point where Hollywood is no longer, hey, we got the rights to this big IP because we want to make a movie off it because it's popular, we make money. Let's tap this director specific, like, that we know can put butts in seats because of the director name. And now it's more of the directors themselves are, to your point, with Alex Garland going for this movie and Zach Cregger going for Resident Evil. But they're now seeking out and, like, hey, I'm doing this movie I have the you know, the blessing of these companies, the IP holders, to do this movie. And then they just go to the movie execs, fund this, you know, for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and we don't know. We'll find out, right? Because he'll do more interviews, but we don't know the exact origins of this movie. It doesn't seem to me like they just dumped it on his plate and he's like, sure. Like, this dude just came off of Weapons. Like, he's got pretty much carte blanche to do anything he wants. And it's like, frankly, like, in any other universe, I would be a little disappointed that one of my favorite working directors today was coming off of one of, you know, my favorite modern genre movies of the decade, if not century, and was doing, you know, some licensed IP crap. Like, I would not be excited about that, right? Like, if you told me, you know, like, Jordan Peele is working on, like, a Yoshi movie or something, I'd be like, that sucks, man. That's not what I want from him, right? And so, like, something tells me that maybe they came to him and he was like, hell yeah, I'd love to do that. Or he came to them and they were like, hell yeah, we'd love if you did that. It doesn't feel to me like this was made out of, you know, obligation or it doesn't feel cynical to me is the vibe I'm getting so far. And again, this movie could be a piece of crap. We don't know. But
we've come a really long way. Like, video games adaptations are ostensibly the new superhero movie, the new comic book adaptation. And, like, looking at, I guess, the caliber of director and the you know, the approach they're taking to projects, it kind of reminds me of when Christopher Nolan took on Batman Begins, which prior to him, it was Darren Aronofsky who was attached to that, doing a year one thing. But up until then, it was like, that was hot off the heels of Batman and Robin. So, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if Resident Evil is going to be, like, you know, Oscar material, but it's a talented filmmaker being like, hey, I give a shit enough about this intellectual property and its source material that I'm not just taking on a paycheck here. I want to do something with it. And Alex Garland is you know, to the nth degree, same deal. The guy's made a couple games. He's been working on this stuff forever. But I know that when that movie comes out, people are, you know, gamers are going to have their nitpicks about it. They're going to have their notes about it. And it's like, I think there is, you know, compared to other stuff, to more, you know, linear conventional media where you don't have a hand in it. I feel like gamers are particularly possessive because, again, you know, you can read, like, every issue of Batman that ever came out, but you don't create a Batman at the beginning of each issue, and you don't suffer losses while you're reading it. Whereas if you spend 200 hours in Elden Ring, like, you have a personal attachment to that universe and you have your own specific way of engaging with it. You have your own, you know, you've been there, you've lived it. And in that sense, you know, it's understandable why people would be like, well, that's not my Elden Ring. That's not how I'm going to see it. And flip side of that is that I think there's a bunch of film critics out there who do have a certain amount of disdain for adaptations of video games because it is this upstart medium. It is this kind of, you know, juvenile bastard form of entertainment that doesn't have the same level of prestige as movies and, you know, conventional shows do. And they're gonna go in with their arms crossed, kind of looking at it side eyed. Like, and I that's deeply frustrating to me because it shows, a complete dismissal of another art form. But we've got to find this compromise between the two, where I feel like film critics need to give this stuff a shot, and gamers need to recognize that filmmakers are going to take liberties, and it's not always just, what is it with the thing about, I don't know, we reach a modern audience or something, or like, oh, I had my own creative vision, or I wanted to, give my version of this. Some of them are going to do that, and some of them are going to screw it up, and some of them are going to, make 6 Resident Evil movies with starring their wife doing flips. Like, that's going to happen. But in other cases, we're going to get movies that do it right, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited we're finally at a point where it's not just kind of a throwaway thing. There's Paul W.S. Anderson and his wife wearing a corset. I'm sorry. That's just what... Anyway, yeah, I'll forever be grateful to Paul W.S. Anderson for making the first Mortal Kombat movie, but also he's made some very bad Resident Evil movies. So what are you going to do?
So in defense of Paul W.S. Anderson, which is something I never thought I would ever say, I have watched all of the Resident Evil movies multiple times. Sometimes you want just something on in the background during the day, and you know what?
Have you heard of a ceiling fan?
Say what?
Have you heard of a ceiling fan?
I enjoy some of the campiness and the cheesiness of those movies. They're never going to rank in my top level of movies ever, but I do enjoy how stupid they are sometimes. So like I will say for that, I at least have been entertained by them more than once.
I'll back you up. I will stop at a very, very specific point. But the first two of them, have some cool stuff in them that aligns with some of my memories of the games. Right. Yeah. In some way. And I think thematically there's some cool stuff in there. But for the most part, after that, the train leaves the station and
for sure.
They're long gone for me. But there's some stuff in the first 2 movies that I'm like, all right, yeah. So you I guess you played the games a little bit, or someone showed you a video. Like you got pretty close there for a little bit, sorta. I guess. But after that, yeah, once it's like apocalypse and there's all this, there's just too much.
All right. Oh yeah, let's go. Let's move on.